What's good, guys? So, today I just want to talk about some things. Like, I got two things to talk about. I got one which is happiness, and the second which is pleasure. And I just want to talk about the differences between the two, and I want to separate like what they really are, so you could use it to help you out. Put your life together in a better setting, right? So, I'm gonna just start off with how I'm using it, right? So, like sometimes I do get lost in like like pleasure. It's kind of like, I'm going to be too lazy in my life. I'm not going to really like strive towards my goals. I'm not really going to help myself out in the future. I'm not going to try to do hard things to make my life easy. And instead I'm just going to do easy things that eventually they're just going to make my life hard. So yeah, I just want you guys to know how to do it yourselves. So, even if you do know, this could be like a reminder for you. And if you want to know, you guys can definitely use this anytime to help yourselves out. So first, I'm gonna start off with happiness, right? So, you know, what is happiness like? What does it really feel like, right? So it starts with the feeling like, oh, you don't really need anything to feel better. You're happy with the issues in your life. There's always gonna be conflict in your life, but you're happy with it. You're not really complaining. You can get through it, and you know that you have to be patient. And it's also like a feeling of wholeness. You have more, you have more wholeness. Like you're not really feeling like there's an empty part of your life. There's definitely things to work on. Obviously there's always something to work on, but you know that like whatever you are, whatever is within you, you're perfectly fine with. So yeah, then we have, I'm going back to goals. I talked about goals before. When you're happy, you obviously strive towards those goals. You have a strong motivation, a strong sense of motivation, I'm sorry. And you just kind of, you know exactly how to do everything, and you can organize your life. You can make a schedule. You can definitely help yourself out. You can handle yourself. Help is fine, but you're obviously organized in your life. And there's a sense of balance. So when there's a sense of balance, it's kind of like, there's conflict, but there's also a lot of things to be grateful about. You're like, oh, I have friends. I have my friends. I have people. I have my parents. I'm privileged in my life. I can be happy with what I have. I have food. I have food on the table. I have things working for me. I can always be a better person. If people don't like me, it's not my biggest problem, right? That's like a list of things that I would have to be grateful about. My parents, my friends. The fact that I have food on the table. So yeah, then we have strong willpower. Obviously, this takes a lot more effort, and it's not really something you do if you were working for pleasure. You obviously need a strong willpower to do well in school. You obviously need a strong willpower to educate yourself, be patient, control your emotions. Just simple things like that. So yeah, you don't really just get that right away. You kind of have to work towards it. So yeah, let me go on to self care. Right, self care. Obviously, you're taking care of yourself. Taking care of your skin. Well, not necessarily skin. That helps itself later when you start like de-stressing yourself. You know how to meditate. You know how to clear your thoughts whenever you need to. You don't always you don't let anger and frustration get to you. You don't let sadness get to you. Just those things. Obviously, in the beginning of my journey to try to become a better person, obviously it was hard for me. It wasn't the easiest. I obviously didn't take care of myself very often. I would get lost in other things. I would distract myself to try and feel better instead of working towards being better. I was thinking about the past and the present. So yeah, that goes on to our next thing, which is like you're living in the present. You're obviously living in now. You're fine with how things are in the past, and you obviously know that you have control of how your future is going to be. So usually you're like, okay, in the past I probably messed up, but I can definitely do better in the future, and I'm going to give myself a second chance. Obviously, a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people tend to blame themselves for the past. A lot of people give up on the future. So, you obviously want to keep these things in mind so you can make a better future for yourself and live in the present and be happy, make memories. So, yeah, in some cases, obviously, you're going to be spiritually aware. Like me, I was personally spiritually aware of myself a lot more on this journey. I tended to learn more things about myself, what makes me happy, what makes me calm, what I can do whenever I'm in distress or things like that, and what my real purpose is here. So obviously, towards like since the start of quarantine, obviously since I've started this journey, I've been starting to pray more. I've been more religious. I've started to discipline myself and try to become a better person. So yeah, that obviously requires a lot of spiritual awareness. You don't just get that out of nowhere. So um, with all this self-discipline and self-control, you're obviously gonna get like very little obsessive behavior because you're gonna know how to control yourself. You want to control yourself because if you can't control yourself, then obviously you're gonna get into a lot more trouble than you would like to, and you're gonna do things you don't want to. You're gonna think you want things, and then you realize later on when it's too late that you don't. Obviously you don't want these things in your life. You just want to know what you want in the future and work towards that. So when people try to work on themselves to make a better future, they tend to mess up, get caught in it. They tend to go on towards like things that give them pleasure. So some things would be like, you know, simple things like, oh, you hang out with your friends a lot to distract yourselves, to distract yourself. Let's see. Some people even like, they don't like to sleep. Then they drink caffeine and they end up having a caffeine addiction. That's obviously not healthy. There's a lot of other things, right? So, what's in common with this is a constant cycle of consumption, right? Obviously, when you drink a cup of coffee, you're not just gonna stop there. You're gonna drink another cup of coffee tomorrow, or probably in the next hour. Some people do that, or you're just gonna eventually keep on drinking it. It's not gonna help you in any way. If you want to make yourself feel better, some people actually drink coffee to make themselves feel better, because it does help with their mood. So yeah, it's not really gonna help you, right? Other things, obviously I don't really want to talk about this, but porn is very common. Guys and girls alike, whenever they're, stressed out, they go home, they watch it, and obviously it's a constant cycle. Some develop addictions, and it eventually ruins their overall mood. And yeah, it's just kind of them going on to porn to make themselves feel better or relieve their emotions, and it doesn't really help. It's actually really bad for you. So yeah, with this, it does not fulfill any void in your emotions. It's definitely not gonna help you feel better. Maybe it's gonna make you feel better for today, but then eventually, as you keep consuming and keep consuming, as you can see in people who use drugs, when you keep using them and keep using them every single day, the effect obviously wears off later, and it's very temporary. You're gonna obviously have to stop for a while and then start doing it again later, so it doesn't actually help you with anything. You realize at the end that you've gone nowhere with your life. But obviously, if people want to smoke once or twice, like, it doesn't really matter. It's really like the addiction that's the problem, right? Everyone knows that. But then other people take it overboard and they start depending on it because they have a void in their emotions. They want to feel something, or they want to feel numb. A lot of people want to feel numb. Personally, I used to drink a lot of coffee. Going back to that, whenever I wanted to feel better, I would always drink, like, Diet Coke or something like that. Obviously, anything with caffeine. It helped me feel more energetic and less tired because I was very exhausted with how things were, and that had an emotional impact. So yeah, it helped with me. So yeah, when you depend on it too much, it leads to like addiction and obsessive behavior. So obviously, you'll see that some people who are addicted to porn, they tend to keep on going to it, and then they watch it every single day. Some people watch it like 5 times a day, or even with drugs, some people just take millions and millions and millions of grams of whatever, like, drug they're on. So that's like, rappers would be an obvious example, right? You see rappers, they're always consistently smoking or consistently taking pills. It doesn't really do anything for their well-being. Instead, they just want to take more and more, and it's very obsessive because the second that they don't take it, there can be physiological effects and mental effects, right? You can see, like, some people get seizures, and other people just completely fall out of it. They get depressed, and then they go back to drugs. It's very hard to actually let go of the cycle once you're attached in it, and that's why you want to stay away from that, right? So that's exactly why I'm talking about this, because a lot of people sometimes tend to ignore this and tend to stray away from paying attention to themselves, because obviously I want the best for everybody. I want everyone to realize how they can become better, how they can love themselves more. And when you're addicted to these things, when you're obsessed with whatever types of like things that give you pleasure, like it just doesn't help you, and it's obviously gonna actually tend to deter you away from trying to become better. It's gonna hinder you, and it's gonna lessen your chances of becoming a better person. So yeah, with this, obviously all of this needs to be controlled, and when there's a lack of control, things can get very dangerous, things can get very messed up, and things can actually become worse for you. So that's why you want to focus on happiness. You want to stay away from this stuff. You want self-discipline. You want to be able to control yourself. So yeah, and with pleasure, obviously those are the easy things. You just get them. It's pretty easy to get. It takes very little work, and then eventually life gets hard. So yeah, you want to do hard things to make your life easier. I personally, obviously, whenever I need to focus, I meditate, and even though I don't want to, I know it's better for me, and even though I'm bored doing it, it's still helping my mindset and still gonna help me do better and still gonna make me want to do better. But there's other easy things like, oh, I can hang out with my friends, I can browse social media. Going back to pleasure, social media is very common. People tend to just scroll through Instagram for hours and hours when they could be spending their time better. They could be reading a book, or like trying to educate themselves. Anyways, like away from that, you can also just take care of yourself. You can do so many more things instead of being on social media. A lot of people just tend to spend time on social media looking for memes, looking for other types of stuff. They just like, you see all these girls on their page, or you see all these guys on their page, but instead they could just be focusing on themselves, right? I got to keep bringing that up because it's very, very important. So yeah, obviously, I take these things into like account very seriously, and like in the beginning, I used to have like a lot of memes. I used to like scroll through memes on my page. I would go through stuff. I would text people, instead of working on myself, and I ended up like ending my day really depressed. I used to be really empty. I just wouldn't know what I wanted, and I would be very indecisive about things. But when you work on yourself, you tend to realize what you want, and you can consistently remind yourself, like how I'm reminding you in this video, that it's important to take care of yourself. It's important to do the things that you do right now to make yourself better in the future. So obviously, I have my SATs coming up, right? Although I don't want to study for it, I'm not really big on studying. I have to focus on it. I have to study for it, and that eventually translates to a high score, and I can eventually go into college, a college that I want to, and I can help people later on in my life, and that makes me happy. I can have the money and the funds to help myself and my family and other people around me. That's what a person who focuses on happiness tends to think about, and instead of that, another person who is the complete opposite side of the spectrum, they just gave up. They just think about, oh, okay, I'm just gonna live my life how it is. I'm not really planning on making anything big. They're very demotivated. So yeah, I really hope that you guys can motivate yourself and take care of yourself. These differences on happiness and pleasure are very important, and I want you guys to, well, I hope you guys use it and eventually work on yourselves to get better results and feel like you're in more control of your life and actually be happier. So yeah, I hope you guys use this, right? And I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves.